Hi, I'm Margaret Lewin and welcome to Margaret Lewin Quilting. Today is day 28 of Moda Fabrics 2020 Stitch Pink. And that means we are going to be working on block number 20H, which is Groovy Granny. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to my channel. If you are not part of our Facebook group, we'd love for you to join us. It's an extremely supportive group of fellow quilters. And if you would consider giving this video a thumbs up, I would greatly appreciate it. So let's move on to making block number 28, Groovy Granny. This is our block. So what I'm going to do is take it over to the sewing machine and I'm just going to put together all of the inside blocks. So I'll stitch these 3, then these 5, then these 7, then these 5, these 3. I will press it all and then I'll bring it back and show you how I'm going to go about adding these end pieces to them and then how we're going to put the entire thing together. These have been purposely oversized so that we have room to square them up. So I'm going to go start by putting these together and then I'll be back to show you the rest. I ended up sewing more of these than what I thought I would, but that's okay. I have sewn everything but the 4 corners, and I'm going to take these and set these aside. And you can see that our our triangles on the sides are definitely oversized without question. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to go about pinning this. I have sewn all of my rows and I pressed all of my seams open. Okay, I'm going to start with this one and I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to line up my seams. See how, let's see, there it goes. See how I've got my seam lined up there? I'm going to take a pin and I'm going to put one on each side of that seam. And as I sew, I'm going to remove the pin. So I'll stitch, stop like right before the pin, then remove the pin, then keep going. What I'll do is use my knee lift on my Bernina 790 Plus to lift up the presser foot just a little bit so I can get the pin out. I'm going to do this one too. Alright, one more there. And then on these, I'm going to just take it right out to the end. And I'll match up on this side, but I'm just going to sew that right off because when I square up the entire block is when I'm going to fix that. Same thing on this side. I'm just going to take it right out straight and I'll put a pin in it, and then when I go to square it up, I will trim it. So there's my first 2 together. I'll do this one and then I'm going to go sew the entire thing together. So I'll sew this row, then this row, then this row. I'll add this, these, and then these. So I'll get it all put together and then I'll be back to show you how we're going to go about squaring this right up so that we've got a nice 12.5-inch square. So that we're ready to go right on to block number 28. So there's my seam. If you have a hard time finding your seam, you can always take your pin, poke it straight through, and see if it comes out at the seam on the other side. That's another way to do it. But right here is my seam. Oh, let me get this open. There you go. Right there's my seam. Alright, so I'm going to pin both sides. Then I'm going to take this out, make sure I've lined up. I'm going to pin again. One more pin and then I'm going to head on over to the sewing machine. Right there. Okay. Alright, I'll be back. I have got this all sewn together and pressed. I'm going to flip it over. All of my seams were pressed open. I'm ready to go on to the next step. This is the last step that I do. before I square it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 4 triangles and I'm just going to lay them right here across this piece and pin it down. Then what I'm going to do is stitch. Hang on just a second, let me get a better pin. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch 1/4 of an inch across. So I'll stitch right across here. Once I've done that, I will press it and open it up, and then I'll come back and show you how we're going to go about squaring it up. You can see all of my triangles are oversized. There's a reason for that. We don't want to lose our points, and this will help us to square it up to 12.5 inches. So I'm going to do all 8. Here's my other one. Here's my second block. We're going to do all 8 of them, and then I'll come back and show you how to square it. Here's my piece all sewn together, and I did starch it with Mary Ellen's Best Press. Here's my pink one also. I'm going to set the pink one aside, and we're going to square up the black one. So what I did first was get it good and stiffly starched, which you can see it's starched. I did a good job on it. The next thing that we need to do is we need to square it up to 12.5. What I found when I came over here to the cutting table to start putting it together was that it is actually, every side of it is actually 1/2 of an inch from these points. So that's where I will get my 12.5. So I'm going to pull my Creative Grids ruler and really take advantage of that 1/2 inch. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm taking my 1/2 inch points, oh, right there's one. I'm taking my 1/2 inch points and lining them right up with the points, the 1/2 inch points on the block. And I'm just going right around. I can see my 1/2 inch, and I'm just making certain that I've got them all the way around. The other thing that you could do, and I'll show you that one, is take your marks and just move your ruler so that you've got like this, so that you can see that 1/2 inch very, very easily all the way through. So with that in mind, I'm going to take my rotary blade and I'm just going to cut one side at a time. Alright, so there's one. Now I'm going to rotate it. Here comes my second side, and I'm going to make sure that I'm right there at my 1/2 inch mark all the way around, and that I'm square down here, and I am. So here comes side 2. I'm going to rotate it again. Now I'm going to do side 3. And to do side 3, what I'm going to do is line up across here and across here. Alright. And then I'm just going to continue right across the top. And then I have my nicely squared up 12.5 inch block. Isn't that cool? Now, I want you to know I never did cut the triangles for this one. I had made mistakes in the past with triangles. This is the perfect place to use them up. We know we need triangles. As long as it's bigger than the size required in the pattern, you're good to go. So now that I've squared up the gray block, I squared the pink one up already. So now they're both all squared up. And that is the conclusion of block number 28 of Moda Sampler's Stitch Pink 2020 Cancer Awareness Quilt. So that's all we've got to do on this one. So our next block is block number 28, and I will be back tomorrow with block number 28. Thank you so much for joining me, and especially for sticking around all the way to the end. I will see you tomorrow for block number 29. Bye, everybody.